Good evening, everybody. It's Monday night. It means another episode of the Parsha. Now, this week's Parsha is a doubleheader, Matot and Massei. It happens to be very, very long Parsha. Last week, Pinchas was also a very long single Parsha, was 168 psukim. This week is 244 psukim. That's besides the Torah reading of Rosh Chodesh. So it's a really long Torah reading this week. But it's a double header of Matot and Massei. Now, Parshas Matot, we'll talk a little bit about Matot and a little bit about Massei. Now, Matot, the Pasuk begins by saying, Vayedaber Moshe al Roshei HaMatos, Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to the heads of the tribes, this is the word Asher Tziva Hashem that God spoke. It's interesting to know, just in passing, that the Gemara learns out from here that all the Nevi'im, when you have prophecy of the prophets, they always say, Ko Amar Hashem, so God said, which is like a little bit third person, distant. So God said. Moshe Rabbeinu, the Gemara says, Nisnaba b'zeh, Moshe Rabbeinu said prophecy with the word zeh. Zeh means here, this is it. It's in front of you. It's visual. It's revealed. So the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu over all the Nevi'im is really revealed in this week's Parsha, that Moshe Rabbeinu prophesies with the word zeh hadavar versus the Nevi'im that prophesies with Koi Amar Hashem. So Moshe Rabbeinu is speaking to other tribes. Basically, it goes into the laws of vows, that a person makes a vow, how to undo a vow, matir neder, a single person, a married woman, all the various laws of the dinim of vows. But we find an interesting thing in Chumash. Here the word matos means the tribes. The tribes are also called shvatim. Shevet Reuven, Shevet and Shimon, Levi, so on. Sometimes the Jews are called Matos, like in this week's Parsha, Mata b'nei Reuven, Mata b'nei Gad, and sometimes they're called Shvatim. Both in this context means a tribe. Why are they sometimes called Mata and sometimes they're called Shevet? So it's a very interesting thing in Hebrew. Shevet and Mata, besides meaning tribes, both means pieces of wood. Shevet, kol sheyaver tachas hashevet, asiri yakedesh. Shevet is actually a staff, and Mata is a staff. We know the Mata that Moshe Rabbeinu had, the Mata Yaakov Avinu had, other Medician had. So the level of Mata and Shevet both mean sticks, branches. What's the difference in Lashon Kodesh between Mata and Shevet? So in Sfarim that explain Lashon Kodesh, Shevet means the branch while it's still connected to the tree, which is a little bit soft. It still has life in it. Mata is like a walking staff. It's already cut from the tree, and it's harder. It's much harder than a shevet. Shevet is like a softer branch, and mata means a harder branch. Shevet not only is softer, shevet is still connected to the tree, meaning it's still nourishing itself from the tree. Mata is already the way it's cut off from the tree. And that's why it's hard. Because it's hard because it doesn't have the chayis of the tree. What does this refer to for the Jews? Sometimes they're called Mata and sometimes they're called Shevet. So it's explained in Svarim, Chassidus also explains it, but it's explained in Svarim of Torah that explain different languages of the Torah. Shevet refers to the neshama the way it's still in Gan Eden. It's still connected to Hashem. It's still connected to the tree of life. Eitz Chaim, it's still connected to the tree of life. Mata refers to the neshama, the way the neshama already comes into the body. The way the neshama comes into the body, then the Jews are called the mata. Okay? Now, why when a neshama comes into the world is it called mata? So number one, because it doesn't openly feel the connection to the tree of life. It doesn't feel openly the connection to Hashem. But there's a deeper meaning in it too. Because the neshama, when it comes into the world to accomplish its mission, needs to be tough. It needs to be hard. Because the purpose of the neshama in the body is to refine the world. And to refine the world and not allow the world to get in your way. So then what you actually need to do is you have to be very strong. So therefore, sometimes the Jews are called the 12 Shvatim, represents the way the Jews are still connected to Hashem and their source. Mata refers to the heart staff, the way it's disconnected from Hashem, the way the neshama comes into the body, but therefore it's harder because it has to accomplish its mission. Now, why is this mentioned by the concept of nedorim, of vows? The concept of a neder that we're speaking about in this week's Parsha means like this. A Jew takes something permissible by Torah and makes it into a vow that he forbids it on himself. As the Torah says, Ish ki yidor neder, or hishava shvua, le'asar isar al nafshay, to forbid something that he's allowed to do according to the Torah. Classic example of this is a Nazir, a Nazirite, who says, I'm going to become a Nazir, so therefore he's not going to drink wine anymore. He's not going to do certain things. He can't cut his hair. He's not going to come tamei to dead people. According to halacha, he's allowed. He is allowed to. He comes along and makes himself stricter than the Torah is. But now the question is, we find two contradictory statements in Chazal about making vows. In Pirkei Avos, it says, Nedarim siog laprishus. If you want to be removed from the world, you want to be separated from the world, you want to be connected to Hashem, you need to make vows. That's what the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos. Nedarim siog laprishus. Siog lachach mishtika, it says right afterwards. Yet we find that the Torah says when a Nazir, who's a classic example of a person making a vow, when he finishes being a Nazir, he has to bring a sin offering, a korban chatas. He has to bring a sin offering for becoming a Nazir. And the Gemara in Saita, Yerushalmi, in many places asks the question, 1 minute. Nazir is a holy guy. He's even more frum than the Torah. The Torah says you could drink wine. He says, no, I'm not drinking wine. Torah says, not about a Nazir. A guy makes a vow not to eat meat. Torah says you're allowed to eat meat. A person makes a vow, he's not allowed to eat, not to eat meat anymore. So he's making a vow, a neder. So from one side, we say, the Mishnah praises in the Dorim that vows as Siyag Laprish is defense to become separated and connect to Hashem. And yet we say, the expression of the Chazal is, Dayach Masha Sarta Alecha Torah. It's enough what the Torah forbid. Don't be more religious than the Torah. The Torah says you could eat meat, eat meat. Torah says you could drink wine, drink wine. But how do you reconcile this with the concept of the Mishnah praising the concept of vows? So is it good or is it bad? So the answer is very simple. It's based on the Rambam. There is, like the Rambam writes, a Jew should always go in derech hamitzua. A person should be a middle-of-the-road guy or woman. A person should always be, there shouldn't be an extremist. Not to the right and not to the left. Torah says you go derech hamitzua, you go the middle road of life. You don't be a fanatic. You don't be a fanatic to the right and you don't be a fanatic to the left. But if somebody is already fanatic to the left, and I'll give you examples of this in a second. If somebody is a fanatic to the left, then they have to be a fanatic to the right, because then you get back to the middle. If you have a branch from a tree or a young tree that bent all the way to the left, and you want to get back to the middle, you can't bend it just to the middle, because then it will be a 45-degree angle. You need to bend it all the way to the right, and after you bend it to the right, hopefully it will come back in the middle. So the concept over here is like this. Generally speaking, a person should not be an extremist. Even in Yiddishkeit, a person should not be an extremist. The only thing we learned in halacha, a person should be an extremist, is anger and haughtiness, and that's it. But in eating and all these things, a person should not be a fanatic. Because why do you have to be more religious than the Torah? In fact, there's a very interesting shaila in halacha, by the way. What happens? Meat and milk fall into each other, and it's nullified 1 in 60. Up within it's kosher, right? It's nullified 1 in 60. Torah says you're allowed to eat it. Is somebody allowed to come along and say, yes, I understand Torah, but I don't want to eat it? Some opinions in halacha say you're allowed to say that. And some opinions scream that you're not allowed to have that attitude. What, are you more religious than the Torah? The Torah says you can eat it. Why are you saying you can't eat it? So therefore, how do you reconcile these two statements, seemingly contradictory statements about Nedarim? Is very simple. If you're a fanatic to the left, meaning a person is overly indulged in meat, their whole life is eating meat, and they want to get out of it back to the middle, then you make a vow. Then you make a vow not to eat meat. A person is an extreme in a certain way, you make a vow not to do it, not to eat it, not to do it, whatever it may be. Otherwise, a person should not make a vow. The Gemara says people should not make vows. So therefore, it's like this. When Moshe Rabbeinu was teaching the laws of vows, and it's interesting, the concept we all know, somebody makes a vow, they have to, and they want to stop it, they have to be matin neder. They need to do ataras nedon. They have to do the nullification of vows. The Gemara says that's like flying in the air. There's no clear pasuk that says about nullifying vows. It's alluded to in today's Parsha. But it's Parshas Ba'av, it's like, it's halacha Moshe Sinai. You won't find the open pasuk in Chumash to say that you can nullify vows and so on. But what it comes is like this. You need to have strength. You need to have strength sometimes when it comes to vows. Because again, you have to know what is my function in the world in refining my animal soul and my temptations and my desires. So over here, Moshe Rabbeinu uses the word Rashi Hamates, which mata means a strong stick, versus Shvatim, which means a soft stick, a soft branch that's still connected to the source. Because when it comes to refining the world, when it comes to elevating the world through vows or through abstinence or not abstinence, a person has to be very, very strong. And therefore, over here, we use the word mata. Okay, another thing is like this. Later on in the Parsha, right after the law of vows, by the way, the pasuk says like this. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, he says, you should go take revenge against the Midianites, because they were the ones that got the Jews fooling around with the non-Jewish Midianite girls, which caused the 24,000 people dying. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, okay. So Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu as follows: Nekaim nikmas b'nei Yisrael. Listen to these psukim. It's a remarkable thing. Nekaim nikmas b'nei Yisrael meisa min yadim. Take revenge for the Jews from the Midianites. And then Hashem says to Moshe, Acher teyosef alamecha. And then you're going to die. Okay? Take revenge from the Midianites, and then you're going to die. So Moshe Rabbeinu speaks to the Jews, and he says, Hecholtzu me'itchem, get soldiers ready, anoshim latzava, get men ready for the army, and we're going to take revenge from Midian. And then the pasuk continues and says like this: Elef lamata, 1,000 per tribe, 1,000 per tribe. Lochel matis Yisrael, for all the tribes of the Jews. Tishluchu latzava, you should send to the army. Why does it add the word here, Lochol matis Yisrael? So Rashi says in the Gemara, if in the Medrash, I mean, L'Rabbi Shevet Levi, that even the Levites had to give 1,000 people to go fight against the war of Midian. Now, if Shevet Levi is counted, how many thousand people should be in the battle? 13,000, right? Because normally you count Menashe and Ephraim, and you don't count Levi, correct? Or when you count Levi, you don't count Menashe and Ephraim. But here, the Torah says, take 1,000 people per tribe, including Levi, which means 13,000. And then the next pasuk says, Vayimosru me'alfa Yisrael. Okay? It was like forcibly taken from the Jews. Elef lamata, 1,000 people per tribe. Shneim aser elef chalutzei tzala. 12,000 altogether. And Rashi says, what does it mean by Yimosru? And Rashi says, look how great Jewish leaders are. Moshe Rabbeinu was told by Hashem, and obviously he gave that over to the Jews, that after he fights Midian, he's dying. So the Jews refused to go to battle. They said, if we go to battle, Moshe Rabbeinu is going to die. We don't want that. Okay, so now Moshe Rabbeinu is going to die. So the Shvatim said, we're not going. So Rashi says, Vayimosru shenimsru al korchon. They were taken against their will. Okay, so now it's a very interesting question, obviously. Number one, if 1,000 people were taken per tribe, including Shevet Levi, there should have been 13,000 people. But the truth is, one question answers the next. There were really 13,000. This is what the Mefarshim explained. There were 13,000 soldiers went. The Torah says 12,000. That's how many were forcibly taken. Levi was a very unique tribe. Levi did what God wanted, and they didn't ask questions. When it came to golden calf, Moshe Rabbeinu said to the tribe of Levi, take swords and kill your brothers, half-brothers from a different tribe. Levi didn't ask any questions. Levi was a tribe so dedicated and devoted to Hashem. Hashem said, Levi, do something. Levi did it. They didn't sit in the spies. They didn't sit in the ego. Levi was a special tribe. God said we don't ask questions. So what happened over here is interesting. Moshe Rabbeinu comes to the Jews and said, listen, guys, I need 1,000 soldiers per tribe. Altogether is going to be 13,000. So the pasuk says 12,000 were forced to leave because Levi went willingly. Moshe Rabbeinu is going to die. Levi said that's not our business. So according to this explanation of different commentaries I just put together, 13,000 soldiers actually went to fight Midian. And 12,000 were forced to go because they didn't want to go because Moshe Rabbeinu was going to die from it. and Levi went on their own. Okay, now, why is this so important to take revenge against Midian? In fact, there's a very famous mimer of the Rebbe Rashab, not a mimer, a whole long book. It's called Heicholzu. It's this pasuk, Heicholzu mi'itchem enoshim latzava. And the Rebbe Rashab, in that mimer Heicholzu, it's learned in a lot of places. It's very easy. It's already translated into English. It's a very interesting mimer. It's a very interesting discourse, very long. The whole mimer speaks about Avas Yisrael, loving a Jew. And he speaks of what does this get to this pasuk? Midian represents, every Goyish nation represented something. The 7 Canaanite nations represented the 7 Midas. Amalek represented the intellectual level of evil. Reishis Goyim Amalek. Midian, the Medrash says, comes from the word modin umeriva, fighting. Midian means fighting. And fighting, hatred, especially now we're in the 3 weeks, baseless hatred, that needs to be uprooted. And Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, take your guys, take your soldiers, and take revenge from Midian. And in fact, in this war, Bilam was killed. Bilam died. It says clearly, Bilam ben Bar, they killed. In fact, there's a whole story in the Medrash. Bilam did witchcraft. So Bilam was flying over the Jewish people. And Pinchas took the Aron and the tzitz, and he looked up at it, and Bilam fell to the ground, and they killed him with a sword. That's how Bilam died. So the whole long mimer of the Rebbe Rashab is the whole concept of Midian is anti-Avas Yisrael. Midian means fighting for no reason at all. And the whole Avodah of Moshe Rabbeinu, who personified Avas Yisrael, is to fight this level of evil, of fighting. Chassidim say, today it's going to sound funny, but in those days it didn't. What caused the Rebbe Rashab to write this mimer? Because he saw a Jew, one of the Bachram, I think it was, who didn't want to drink from a glass that another person drank from. We're not talking about germs and all that stuff. It wouldn't go today. But the Rebbe Rashab saw the way somebody didn't want to drink from another Jew's cup. And it bothered him very much. Says, it's your family. You don't drink from your kids' cups, from your parents' cups, from your brother's cups. Come on, your family. And because of that, thank God, by the way. Because of that, thank God, we have a whole mimer of Heicholzu, that the whole long mimer speaks about Avas Yisrael and the love of another Jew. So that's what, that aspect of it. And therefore, it's especially important in the 3 weeks to transform the hatred of Midian into a level of Kedusha. Okay, another thing in the Parsha is, the Pasuk says like this, at the beginning of Shishi Parak Lamed Beis, Pasuk says, Mikne Rav Hayil B'nei Gad B'nei Reuven. The tribe of Gad and Reuven had a tremendous amount of cattle. Now you have to understand, let me just picture the scenario that went on now in the desert. The Jews did not go into Eretz Yisrael yet, but they conquered the land of Sichen and Og, right before, at the end of Parshas, right before Parshas Balak, in the end of Parshas, by the end of Parshas Chukas, the Jews destroyed Sichen and Og and captured the land. Okay, that land was very fertile to graze cattle on. So Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven came to Moshe Rabbeinu, and they said, we have a lot of cattle, and we don't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. Let us stay here, on this side of the Yarden. which, by the way, until now did not have the biblical law of Eretz Yisrael, because only on the other side of the Jordan River that Yeshua went and conquered the 7 nations was at this time biblical Eretz Yisrael. But they came to Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven and they said, okay, give us this land. It's fertile land. Give us this land. So Moshe Rabbeinu starts giving them a speech. Where do you get this chutzpah? This is exactly what the Meraglim did. The Meraglim also didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. Why are you weakening the hearts of your brothers? You don't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. That's exactly what the spies did. And Moshe Rabbeinu was screaming at them. What are you doing? A replay of the Meraglim. So Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven says to him, so Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven came to Moshe Rabbeinu. They said, listen, you're wrong. That's not what our intent is. We will build here. Gidre is saying we'll build animal stalls. We'll build cities for our kids. And we are going to go into Eretz Yisrael with the rest of the Jews. Not only are we going to go with the rest of the Jews, but we're going to go in the front of the battle. And after the land is conquered and divided, then we're going to go back here. So he said to Moshe Rabbeinu, we are not the Meraglim. The Meraglim didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael at all. We are willing to go. We will first build, things for our cattle and our children and so on. We will go in front of the Jews conquering Eretz Yisrael, and then we won't leave until the whole land is conquered and divided. And we know the Psukim say it took them 7 years to conquer Eretz Yisrael and 7 years to divide Eretz Yisrael. So Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Rabbi Moshe, we will go into Eretz Yisrael, and for 14 years we will be there. After all the Jews are settled in Eretz Yisrael, we will come back. So Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, it's a deal. And by the way, I don't want to get into it now, but whoever is in yeshiva and learned the Gemara Kedushin and numerous other Gemaras, we learn a lot of laws of conditions. When you make a condition, I'm selling this on the condition, I'm doing this on the condition. All the laws of condition, we learn out Moshe Rabbeinu's conditions of Bnei Gad and Reuven. It has to be a doubled condition. If you do it, yeah, and if you don't do it, no. And it has to be the condition before the action. There's a bunch of laws we learn out in the Gemara from these psukim of Moshe Rabbeinu making a condition Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, but that's not for now. So the question is like this. What's the difference between Moshe Rabbeinu, the Meraglim, and these people? Moshe Rabbeinu screams at them, you're exactly like the spies. You don't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. So they said, no, we're not the spies. We will go into what went on over here? And what is the difference between Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven and Moshe Rabbeinu and the spies? So the Rebbe explains like this. Chassidus explains, the Rebbe brings it down in many sichos. The Meraglim didn't want anybody to go into Eretz Yisrael. They wanted everybody to stay in the desert. And like we learned, why the kids said? Because in the desert, they had free mon, free food, free drinks, free clothing, free everything. They were able to sit and learn Torah a whole year, a whole day, every day. Okay? For 40 years, they sat and learned Torah the whole day. There's nothing else to do. Now they're going to go into Eretz Yisrael. No man, no oil, no clouds. We're going to have to work for a living. We don't want to give up Torah to work. We don't want. So they were great people. Their idea was not wrong. They said, here in the desert, we're able to sit and study Torah all day. We have the man and the well and everything. Now we're going to go into Eretz Yisrael. We're going to have to cultivate the land. We're going to have to work. And what are we going to learn in Daven? Okay? Moshe Rabbeinu screamed at them by the Meraglim because that's not what Hashem wants. Hashem doesn't want us to be secluded from the world. Hashem wants us to be in the world. Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven are coming afterwards and they say, we understand that. At the same time, we understand there has to be two divisions in Judaism. There has to be what's called Yeshvei Oyhel, the people that sit to learn, and there has to be business people, Bali Yasik. There has to be like Yisachar and Zvulun. Zvulun did business. Yisachar learned the whole day, and they were partners. They understood. B'nai Gad and B'nai Reuven said, "We understand. We don't want that everybody shouldn't go into Eretz Yisrael. We have a lot of cattle. What we want is we should be the people that are Yeshvei Oyhel, the people sitting and learning. They, the people that want to do business, let them go into Eretz Yisrael and do business. They have to elevate the world. That's fine. But you can't have Jewish nation, even today, either only learners or everybody only business. There has to be this combination to function properly as a Jewish nation. The Gemara says, you know why Yoav ben Tzruya, who is David's general in battle, Yoav ben Tzruya won the battles because David HaMelech sat at home and learned Torah. There had to be both. You need to fight the battle of Gashmi's Parnasa, physical world, and deal with it. But at the same time, you need spirituality. What was B'nai Gad and B'nai Reuven's specialty? What did they want? We learned already many times. What was the uniqueness of Yosef over Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov basically were secluded from the world. The Shvatim were secluded from the world. Like Yosef said to Parah, my family are shepherds. What does a shepherd do? He takes his sheep out to the field. He lets them graze, and he learns and davens. So B'nai Gad and B'nai Reuven said, listen, we know that there has to be both. There has to be people sitting and learning Torah, and there has to be people that are doing business. Let us be that part that learns. Let us be shepherds. That we have a lot of cattle we want to be. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, then that's a valid point. If that's what you want to do, and they said, we'll even prove it. Because we are going to fight ahead of the rest of the Jewish people. We're going to fight, and then we'll come back. So when Moshe Rabbeinu saw this, Moshe Rabbeinu said, that's fine. I agree to that. And Hashem agreed to that. And B'nai Reuven and B'nai Gad, by the way, kept up their condition. They went to fight, and after 14 years, that's when they went back home to, get the land of Sichon and Ev. Okay, there's a lot of things in this Parsha. I just wanted to get into Massei a little bit, because Massei is a phenomenal Parsha. What?
Can I ask you?
Yeah?
Can you explain to me why Moshe Rabbeinu forced Ephraim and Menashe to split up and go half with God?
That's a good point. Why did half of the tribe of Menashe go?
Menashe.
Okay, that's not for now. I want to get into Massei. It's a very good point. The Mepharshim talk about it, but because if you notice, B'nai Gad and B'nai Reuven came. It doesn't say B'nai Gad and Reuven and with half of Menashe came. Half of Menashe didn't come. It says in the pasuk, B'nai Gad and B'nai Reuven came. That's all. So then Hashem says, Vayitin Moshe, B'nai Gad, B'nai Reuven, and half the tribe of Menashe. That's the one they got it, but they didn't even ask for it. But again, that's a whole separate issue. Okay, the second Parsha is Eila Massei B'nai Yisrael. These are the journeys, plural, of the Jews. Asher Yatzu Me'eretz Mitzrayim, that they left Egypt. The armies Biad Moshe V'Aaron, in the hands of Moshe and Aaron. Meaning, the Jews traveled out of Egypt. These are the journeys the Jews took to go out of Egypt. If you count how many journeys the Jews camped in the desert, there are 42. Membeis Masois. There's a number of questions here, just on this whole thing itself. Number one, the pasuk says these are the journeys that the Jews traveled going out of Egypt. Now, as we learned in the Torah this morning, How many journeys did it take him to go out of Egypt? One journey. From Sukkot to Ramsey Sukkot. The Jews were in Egypt in the city of Ramses. The Pasuk said they went from Ramses to Sukkot. How many journeys did it take to go out of Egypt? One. One journey to go out of Egypt. Yet the Pasuk says these are the journeys, plural, B'nai Asher Yotzu Me'eretz Mitzrayim, that left Egypt. Going out of Egypt is one journey. Why does the Torah say plural? And another thing is, another very interesting thing, when you travel somewhere, is the main thing the traveling or your destination? The traveling is not the main thing. The traveling is only a means to get you to get to your destination. You need to travel. So what was the main thing? The pasuk keeps saying 42 times. Vayisu, vayachnu. They traveled, they camped. They traveled, they camped. What was the main thing? Traveling or the camping? Obviously, the main thing was the camping, right? So instead of saying these are the travels of the Jew, it should have said these are the campings of the Jews. Because why is it saying these are the journeys, the traveling of the Jew? Really, it wasn't the traveling of the Jew that tried primary. It should say these are the journeys of the Jew, the campings of the Jew. Okay? So I'm going to discuss something, and I'm going to go back to the next pasuk, which is an unbelievable thing. The Baal Shem Tov said that these 42 journeys of the Jews leaving Egypt are the 42 journeys of life. Asher Yatzu Me'eretz Mitzrayim is when a person is born. They go out of Mitzrayim. There's limitations. For 9 months, the baby is cooped up in the mother's stomach. And after 9 months, the baby leaves Egypt. Where's the ultimate destination? Like the last pasuk says, "Vayachnu al yadim ba'aretz me'od." Where is the end destination? Me'vel yadim mizracha. Okay, right to go into Eretz Yisrael. So the Baal Shem Tov said, these 42 journeys that the Torah speaks about represent the 42 journeys of life. You're born, you go out of Egypt, and you die, you finish the 42 journeys, you go into Eretz Yisrael, which means Gan Eden. Okay? These are the 42 journeys of a Jew in life. Some of these journeys of the 42 places, the pasuk itself says, the Jews sinned here, the Jews sinned there, the Jews sinned here, they complained here. What does that mean? A Jew has to know that in life, there's ups and downs in the journey of life. Meaning, a person starts when they're born, they start the journey of life. I always tell people, I hear this from my father yet, there's 3 primary stages in life: hatch, match, and dispatch. Hatch means you're born, you're hatched, not an egg, but a human. Match, you get married, and dispatch is when you goodbye, you leave the world. So there's 3 main stages in life: hatch, match, and dispatch. But here, there's 42 details in life. And the Torah is teaching us an interesting point, according to the Baal Shem Tov. The main objective of a Jew is never to stop, to camp. Camping means you stop. In the life of a Jew, you are always moving. You're always traveling. Like we said many times, Chassidus gives a mashal that life is like climbing a very steep mountain. Yeah, you climb a steep mountain. You stop, you're going to fall down. You can't stop. It's not a flat area where you can stop. You start and you climb. If you don't keep going, you're going to fall down. Life is full of difficulties, full of challenges. And therefore, as the Rebbe explains in another sikha, the journeys of life is for a tzaddik to be aware of and even a rasha to be aware of. The tzaddik needs to know, oh, I'm a great tzaddik. I status quo, I'm a perfect Jew. The Torah says, no, you got to travel. Until you die, you're still traveling out of Egypt. You're still traveling out of your previous limitations. It's not going the physical, leaving Egypt physically was one journey. But in the journey of life, going to Eretz Yisrael, there is no such thing as camping. You never stop. Issue number one. It's what's called Massei. There needs to be the journeys. We never stop. Secondly, the Jew needs to know, and that's why the Torah along this way speaks about they sinned here and they sinned Baal Tzifayim and they complained and the whole thing. Many psukim over here, the Jews are complaining. What is it teaching us? You're going to have downfalls in life. There's going to be ups and downs in life. But you should know it's all the journey to the destination. All the journey to the destination. You will get there. And don't worry about the downs. And therefore, even a person who's a rasha says, how can I make a journey? I'm no good. The Torah says, don't worry about it. That's what life is all about. The journeys of a Jew through life is going to, but never camp, never stop, keep going. And where does a Jew get this kayach from? Where does a Jew get the strength from? And here the pasuk says a remarkable thing. The second pasuk of Parshas Massei, Perek Lamed Gimel pasuk based. And listen to the expression of the pasuk. Vayichteiv Moshe Rabbeinu wrote, as Meitzoehem, they're going out lemaseihem for their journeys. Ve'ela maseihem lemeitzoehem, and these are their journeys for the going out. The pasuk begins. Moshe Rabbeinu wrote, Motzoehem, they're going out first. Lemaseihem for their journeys, and then he says, Ve'ela maseihem, these are the journeys for the going. Why does he reverse it? He starts off by saying, these are the going out for your journeys. And then he says, these are your journeys for the going out. And Chassidus explains this pasuk, which is the introduction to the journeys, is telling the Jew, where do you get the strength to travel in a midbar, in a desert full of snakes and scorpions and dangerous things like we learned this morning in Chassidus. Nachash, B'chlal, a midbar, nothing grows. A midbar is desolate, empty, no civilization, no human beings, no plant life, nothing. It represents evil. Nachash, snake, represents original sin. Sara va'akum, snakes and scorpions. We learned, we mentioned this, but this morning we learned this. The Gemara says the venom of a snake is hot, the venom of a scorpion is cold. Therefore, the middle letters of akrav is kar, cold. The Torah says you need to travel through a desert, the 42 journeys of life, which is a desert, a jungle, uncivilized, dangerous, with snakes that want to get you to sin, with Sarah va'akrav, Sarah means hot, sreifa, of where there's an enthusiasm for worldly things, and there's akrav, coldness to Yiddishkeit. Where do you get the strength from? This is Mr. Moshe Rabbeinu. What does it mean? Vayichteiv Moshe, when you just think when you speak, you bring something down from your thought. When you write it, you bring it even lower. You bring it into action. So Chassidus explains like this. Vayichteiv Moshe, Moshe Rabbeinu brought down Motzoehem. Motzoehem means the source where you come from, lemaseihem, for their journeys. Meaning, Chassidus explains, Moshe Rabbeinu reveals the source of the neshama into every Jew in their journeys. A Jew doesn't go alone. A Jew doesn't travel alone. Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayichtav Moshe, Moshe Rabbeinu wrote, meaning Moshe Rabbeinu brought down. Motza, this source, meaning the source where the neshama comes from, the highest levels of godliness. Moshe Rabbeinu brings down that essence of the neshama, the Yechida Shebenefesh, the Pinta Liyid, Lemaseyam, into their journeys. So a Jew is never traveling alone. A Jew is traveling with the essence of God within him, the Yechida Shebenefesh. The Rebbe told many shluchim, in fact, he told it to my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, but the Rebbe told to many shluchim, Ich fardach mit eich, I am traveling with you on your shlichus. What are you afraid of? Hashem, Moshe Rabbeinu brings down this godly level that every Jew possesses. Motza'ehem, the source of the neshama, Lemasseihem, even in their journeys, that they get this power to overcome the difficulties. And then the pasuk says, what happens? The Masseihem, and through the journeys, you go back Lemotzoehem, to the place you came from, to the essence of God. And as Chassidus explains, you obviously don't go back to the same level where the neshama was before it came down, because we learned already, you don't invest $100 to make $100. The Gemara brings on that expression. You spend 100, you make 100. That's, the Gemara says, you're a fool. That's called a businessman. A businessman is you invest, you lose money to make more money than you lost. Yurida tzayda chaliyah. The purpose of a descent is to go greater. Why does the neshama come down into the world? Not to go back to the same level it came from, but we might as well just stay there. Stay in Gan Eden and finish. Why is the neshama coming down into the world? Because the neshama needs to go up to a place greater than it was before. And only through the Yerida into the world, into this desert of Nachash, Sarda, V'Akrav, and the Jew goes through the 42 levels. And through this, the Jews go through the 42 levels, the 42 journeys of life. Through the journeys of life, you come back lemotzaehem, and that's why the order is reversed. Moshe Rabbeinu is taking the source of the neshama and putting it into the journeys of the Jew, that the Jew can overcome the difficulties. Then the pasuk says, you accomplish by the journeys. Through Masseihem, you come to Motzaehem, you come back to the source of godliness greater than you were before. So the Baal Shem Tov says this whole story over here, so to speak, is all about the neshama traveling through the journeys of life. And the Baal Shem Tov said, why is it called Massei B'nai Yisrael? Why is it not called Chaniyas B'nai Yisrael, the camping of the Jews? So Chassidus explains what the Baal Shem Tov is teaching us is, these are the journeys because a Jew always has to be a goer. The difference between a neshama and an angel is, as we learned many times in Chassidus, the pasuk that says, "V'nasati l'cha mahalchim bein ha'imdim ha'ela." Hashem says, I'm going to make you guys neshamas, goers amongst the standards, which refers to the angels. Angels also go up, it says, but their ascent, because they don't have the ability to choose between good and bad. They're programmed to do good. Yes, so they do good. So they do a little good. They get a little better. So they go up a step higher. When a Jew has the opportunity in life to choose the bad journeys or the good journeys, the choice is difficult because it's a midbar full of snakes and scorpions. And the Jew nevertheless chooses to do mitzvahs. So then they become mahalchim, they become Massei, they become travelers. A Jew is never stopping. And there's a very interesting halacha that the Rebbe points out in these issues. On Shabbos, we're learning now during Mincha Marav time. In order to consider carrying something, you have to pick it up, carry it out, and stop. Okay? So the Gemara discusses what happens if a person is carrying a heavy load and they stop. Is that called stopping or not? So the Gemara says if he's doing it to fix the package that's falling off, he's stopping to fix the package to be able to go walking. The Gemara said that's not called stopping. If you stop to rest, that's called stopping. Why? You stop to rest, that's a rest. But if you're stopping because you need to continue, and in order to continue, I need to take a little break, the break is not a break. Then the actual camping is traveling. It's an unbelievable concept. When a Jew is traveling in their life, their 42 journeys, they're from birth, they're going to Eretz Yisrael, to Gan Eden, Mashiach, Tchias HaMesim, whatever you want to call it. And the Jew realizes, I have to travel. I have to be mahalach, I have to be a mover. And then the Jew realizes, though, but sometimes I need to sleep. I need to eat. I need to take a break. But they're not eating and drinking to camp. They're not eating and drinking because they want to take a rest. They're doing it to continue the journey. So then the Torah says the whole thing is Massei. Even the camping is called traveling. Why? Because the only reason you're camping is to move on further. And it's a remarkable concept, this whole thing of life, the way the Baal Shem Tov said in a few words, that these are the 42 journeys of life, but then you have all these other issues. The Chassidus explained all these super great levels. Okay, next. One more point, and it says it's to explain the concept of the journeys of life in the evil way. By the way, this Derech Agav, in this week's Parsha, it speaks in depth about the passing of Aaron. When Aaron died in Parshas Chukas, the pasuk just says he died. Here, in Perek Lamed Gimel, pasuk Lamed Ches, it says Vayal Aaron Akein Alor Rahor Vayama Shem, and he died Vishnasu Arboim in the 40th year. When did he die? In the 5th month, on the first day of the month. What day is Aaron HaKohen's yahrzeit? Aleph of. This Shabbos is Rosh Chodesh Menachem of. There's only 1 month, one day Rosh Chodesh. So Aaron HaKohen's yahrzeit, by the way, is this Shabbos. That's time. And over here the Torah, and the Rebbe explained, because this parsha is always read around the yahrzeit of Aaron, so the Torah elaborates, so to speak, on the death of Aaron. But the Rebbe explained like this. There was this, and show how you could be great in the journeys and yet have to be careful. There was this famous person called Yeravim ben Nevat. Yeravim ben Nevat did allow the Jews to go up to Eretz Yisrael. He put idols. There's a lot of stories in the Gemara with Yeravim ben Nevat. Okay? The Gemara says in Sanhedrin that Yeravim ben Nevat was the biggest scholar of Torah in his day. The biggest scholar. Every aspect of Torah's Kohanim, meaning the whole book of Vayikra, Yeravim ben Nevat, there was no equal to him in learning Torah. And every aspect of Torah's Kohanim, which is the Medrash and Vayikra, he explained in 103 ways. He was so great in learning, he explained everything, he learned everything 103 different ways of learning. And yet at the end, he became Chayto Machtes Rabim. When the Gemara wants to give an example of a person who sinned and caused the public to sin, It's Yeravim ben Nevat. And it says in Pirkei Avos, Yeravim ben Nevat. Chote v'hechtis harabim. Yeravim ben Nevat. This same Yeravim ben Nevat, that's to show how careful the Jew has to be in the journeys of life. At the end, he ended up worshiping idols, which is symbolic in the Egel. The Egel is the epitome of Avodah Zarah. Chazal tells, it brings it down in the Sikha. Egel equals 103. The same 103 different ways of learning Torah that Yeravim ben Nevat learned and taught. When he turned off, because of ego, by the way, he turned off, he went into Avodah Zarah, which is Egel, which is a numerical value of 103. So that's why it's brought down in the journeys of life. A person has to be extremely, extremely careful that even though that there are downs in life, but you need to know that the ultimate goal is to travel, not camping. How do we get this koyach? Moshe Rabbeinu, Massei Massei, Moshe Rabbeinu reveals the essence of the Jew. Massei, where the neshama comes on, into the travels of the Jew, and then through this you're able to go back greater than you were before. Okay, that's it for tonight. In Mitzvah Shem, Wednesday night, we are going to learn the laws of the 9 days in Tanya. And the following week, we're going to learn in Mitzvah Shem the laws of Tisha B'Av, especially this year. Tisha B'Av is Saturday night and Sunday. There's a lot of laws involved in how to go from Shabbos into Tisha B'Av. Anyway, Mitzvah Shem this Wednesday, 8:30 will be Halach and Tanya. Don't forget this week it's Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. Everybody have a great week, and we'll see you Mitzvah Shem Wednesday night.
Amen.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Welcome, Sei gesund.
Thank you.
Thank you.